Last name is.
Bye. We're starting. Bye, Milo. Go watch TV.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Nico.
Bye.
All righty, and welcome to another great Colin Crandall interview. I am so glad to have this next guest on, one of the most respected men in the entire world of combat sports. We are talking about the legendary Cutman, producer, actor, commentator, writer, former fighter. There's nothing that this man hasn't done and can't still do. And we're talking about the legendary Jacob Stitch Duran. Welcome to the show, Stitch. Really great to see you.
Thank you, Colin. I like the background, man. You know, I'm from the Bay Area, so it's nice to see a little bit of areas that I'm familiar with.
Absolutely. I just remembered that. Yeah, and I spent some time up there too. There's a lot of great places in the East Bay and then the Sacramento area and everything, and that's where you came up. And speaking of which, the movie, gotta ask, because I know that's been moving and during the pandemic, and you guys still made some things happen. And I'd love to know what's going on with the movie from your two books, which are From the Fields to the Garden. And I have a feeling that's in the can, and we may all be privileged to be seeing that sometime soon. I'd love to hear as much as you can tell me what's where we'll be able to see that, what the progress is.
I'll give you an update, and just by the grace of God, man, things just work out right. I was in Tokyo for a New Year's Eve show, and I came back, and that following weekend I was in LA, and I met with Gerard Roxburgh, the producer, and Rudy Montedrago, the director editor, and we kind of got an update on what's going on. So the film's coming along great. We got a new sizzle out that now we're going to start kind of closing the deals and all that, but we're going to get a couple more interviews with some nice high profile names and myself. And then to top it off now, you know, we were going to kind of finish it right then and there, but I got inducted into the National Boxing Hall of Fame. And April the 28th, they're going to have their event where they induct us in Montebello, California. So I spoke to the people, and they gave us all access to film the event. So we're going to close the documentary with me making it into the Hall of Fame. So couldn't have scripted any better if it was made in Hollywood, you know, so it's a blessing.
So well deserved, my friend, so well deserved.
Yeah.
And I know so many people are in the movie, and has taken, was that based on kind of like both of your books, or more the first one, or kind of a little bit of both with some dramatic license thrown in there?
It was just my life, you know. That's the life that I've lived, and you know, there's going to be certain chapters, different chapters of my life, and you know, it starts off as being a farm worker, and of course, you know, from the fields to the garden as a farm worker. And we got some great footage, and you know, they're talking about they use drones and everything to go to the San Joaquin Valley where I grew up at, and film some of the farm workers and interview my friends. So that chapter alone is great, and then we go into my time into the military and how I got into this this business of having my own school of kickboxing, and then moving to Vegas, and you know, the UFC came along, and of course, you know, we're gonna finally define my version of what had happened and why it happened, and what's happening now with it, right? So that's gonna be fun, and then, like I say, man, they're gonna finish it up with the me being inducted into the National Hall of Fame, Boxing Hall of Fame.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah, so I'm stoked with that.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to that. And tell me, forgive me for, because with all the great.
And now you're coming a little low. I don't know if it's me or you.
Yeah, let me see if I can fix that real quick here.
All right.
Okay, let's try this again and see if this makes it better. Okay.
Yeah, you
All right,
started off strong. Yeah.
Okay, and so is this a little bit better? Can you hear me better with this?
Yeah, it's 100 times better.
Okay, fantastic. I appreciate that. So as far as the distribution of the movie, is there a set release date yet, or are you still working on getting that taken care of?
Yeah, it's you know, first you finish the product, and then you go and present it. But they're looking at you know, the high-end accounts, the Netflix, and you know, like I said, I would have loved to have had it on. My preferred choice would have been Showtime, but they just got out of the business, right? But
Yeah,
you have the
unfortunately.
ESPNs, and you got Amazon, and you got all these. So you know, these guys are pretty solid at what they do, and everything is timing and placement, and finishing up with a Hall of Fame is going to be like, I mean, it don't get no better than that.
Nope, absolutely, and
So
so well
I think,
deserved.
yeah, they've done a tremendous job. I sent you the trailer with, Michael B. Jordan, Tyson Fury, Sean Porter, Shane Mosley Jr., Cain Velasquez from the UFC, Scott Coker, so there's a whole cast of important people in my life that have helped chisel my life, and they tell their story on how they participated in my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. This is going to be epic. I'm so excited to see this, and I know a lot of people will. Let me ask you about those times back when you mentioned Showtime no longer going to be involved in airing combat sports. I just don't understand their decision on that. I guess people make decisions and they get new people in there, and more than likely, I would think whoever made that decision is probably not a combat sports fan. And sometimes you have people who are not that make a decision about stuff like that. It's not always good. But back in the days, everyone knew in boxing you had the fighters that were contracted with their promoters were connected with HBO, and the fighters that were connected with Showtime. And you remember back in the day, it'd be always like, well, this fighter is probably not going to fight that fighter because how are they going to deal with that? This guy's on HBO, the other guy's on Showtime. And on HBO, it was always Michael Buffer, as you know, doing the ring announcing, and on Showtime it was Jimmy Lennon Jr.
Right.
And we could always count on that. And once in a while, and this I'm going to throw you a curve here. Once in a while, they would do a combined promotion, and I think they only did that a few times. Do you have any recollection of a time where they teamed up? And I think of a couple times maybe.
I have no recollection, but I wouldn't be surprised if I was there.
Yeah, I bet you were. I was gonna say,
yeah,
I bet you were.
I've done so many events that sometimes these little fine points come into view.
Absolutely.
I talked to this friend of mine that he brought. Actually, I did an interview yesterday. Guy's a Muay Thai fighter from Miami, and we're talking about kickboxing from the old days, and he brought up names that kind of I thought faded off into the sunset. Randy Couture, Randy Boussard and Chai Smith, some of my fighters. So it was nice to bring that back. But yeah, sometimes you got to jingle my brain and remember that's right. Do it together.
I remember. Sorry. I remember watching Chai Smith fight a lot. Who was that? There was a French guy that he had 2 or 3 great fights. Was it named something Adine, Nazardine or something?
Well, Nasser Navarone, you're talking about. Nasser,
so.
When Nasser used to work with Dennis Alexio, sparring partner, I worked with him. He was based out of Sacramento. Yeah, Chai's rivalry, a lot of it was, they had a lot of them. John Adams, he's fought, but Juan Torres, from
yes, the Ghost Warrior. Love the Ghost Warrior, Juan Torres.
Yeah, exactly. And we all ended up being friends, so
yeah.
But that's that's literally the history of kickboxing USA.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the best. Who I was remembering the late Alex Gong. Remember him?
Yeah. Yes.
F-16, I think. Did you ever corner him or involved in a fight that he was in?
No, Alex and Fairtex actually came in right at at that time, and he ended up doing some good things in the short period of time, and then he ended up getting killed. So that was real heartbreaking and a disappointment.
Yeah, I remember. I think he was still like in his late 20s or early 30s.
Yeah, he was just getting going.
Yeah, I still remember reading that someone said, "Hey, a guy just sideswiped your car," and he ran out of the Fairtex and caught up with a guy. What the hell are you doing here? And the guy pulled out a gun and shot and killed him.
Yep.
Just shameful. Sad. It's interesting. I'm sure in this world of combat sports, as long as you've been in it, you've probably seen a lot of people come and go. The great Eddie Futch, some of the referees. I was remembering referee Mitch Halpern, if you remember him.
Sure, yeah.
He was an amazing referee and passed away really young. Who are some of the people that you remember along with those guys that have passed that you had great relationship with?
Yeah, it's great you bring up these type of memories. Because I've had plenty, right, to work with them. I remember all these guys. Emmanuel Stewart, I had some great times with Chuck Bodak. He was my mentor, the first one to welcome me to Vegas, and we did my first movie with him with Antonio Banderas and Woody Harrelson. So many. Mills Lane.
Yes.
The reason I bring all these names Doc Brodus, that used to work with George Foreman. And the reason I bring these names up, and I'm glad you brought this up, Colin, is because remember I told you about this documentary I did 23 years ago,
Yes.
Boxer's Nightmare, and
Yes.
it dealt with all the stuff that fighters went through,
I
and
love that.
he never did nothing. Well, John Barnhouse, my partner, passed away about 8 months ago, and I hadn't seen this film in, I think probably since the last time I talked to you. But everybody that I have in there are all Hall of Famers, and half of them are dead. But
Right.
I had that relationship with them, right? So you had, well, you had we had Joe Cortez, Richard Steele, Mills Lane passed away, Chuck
Yep.
Bowden passed away, Emmanuel Stewart passed away, Doc Brodus passed away, and these guys that I had some kind of working relationship, if not a friendship relationship with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just to have been part of their life, Eddie Futch,
Yep.
I sharp guy. And so I was around all these guys and it was an honor.
Absolutely. Is Lou Duva still around? He can't be, I wouldn't
No,
think.
Lou Duva passed, yeah. And I had a chance to work with him when Oscar had his Contender. Remember
Right.
Stallone had his? And then Oscar, they brought me in to work with Oscar's The Contenders, and Lou Duva and Tommy Brooks were the coaches for one of the teams that I happened to be their cup man. So yeah, I had that
awesome.
relationship with him and Tommy Brooks. Yeah.
He was amazing. He was a legend. I still remember the two fights with Riddick Bowe and Andrew Galata. I'm sure no one will ever forget those. Where in that first fight, I think it was an opponent switch, kind of a late opponent change for Riddick Bowe, and they brought in Galata. And when they did, those of us in the know, and you're always knowing more than me, but I was a huge boxing fan. And when they brought in Galata, I think a lot of us said that's not going to be the easiest fight for Riddick Bowe. And Galata was beating the brakes off of him. If you remember, he was just beating the crap out of Riddick Bowe, but he kept hitting him low. And I think, you know what it was, I think, probably you'd agree, a lot of these guys that are 6'3", 6'3.5", usually are slightly taller than at least back then. Now they wouldn't be. But then when they would fight a guy that was 6'5", 6'5.5", the distance was off a little bit, especially with their body punches, because the guy's, 2-3 inches taller. And I just don't think, and maybe you do, I don't think I don't think Galata was trying to do that, but then there's so many examples, the headbutt against Samson Poua and other stuff. What do you think that I mean, why would Galata do it when he was winning? He was smashing Riddick Bowe. It had to be accidental, or do you think not?
Nah, it's it was an Eastern European type of style, number one. His type of fighting was typical Eastern European, hard nose, hard and all that.
Yeah.
He was never a body puncher. And then to try to go to the body when you're exhausted, a lot of it creates low blows, but yeah, you're right, using his head and crying in the ring, remember just quitting and I mean, that was insane.
Yeah.
So
I remember when Lou Duva, this is one of the greatest kind of comedic boxing, because obviously there's comedy wherever you look for it, but fighting is not really a funny situation or experience. It's a lot of pain. But Lou Duva had a pair of trunks on the punching bag, and he had a line above the trunk showing Galata where you got
yes, I remember that. Yeah.
It said here, above here, not below there.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember thinking going into that rematch, which was in months. They never really do that anymore. A rematch, they got to build it up for 8 months or a year. This was, I think, 3-4 months later or something. And I remember thinking, well, one thing we know that's not going to happen is another disqualification for low blows. I'm thinking that for sure is not going to happen. They could give me a 200-1 odds, and I'm not going to put any money. It's flushing money right down the toilet. And I just couldn't believe it. He was hitting him low, and we're saying this can't be. It's just not possible that this can happen. And the same thing, and it's crazy because in the first fight, it was where the riot broke out. If you remember, that riot was one of the now you weren't at that first.
No, neither one of those fights.
Can you imagine? Now, what would you have done? I'm sure you've been to riots and you were a fighter yourself, but What the heck? You remember that insanity? Everyone's beating the crap out of each other, and guys are jumping into the ring. And Jim Lampley is there with Larry Merchant and George Foreman, and Jim is saying, "Thugs and hooligans have overrun the ring and the arena. Thugs and hooligans are everywhere."
Yeah.
And then you had Larry Merchant saying something, and then George Foreman is saying, "Don't do it, son. Don't do it. You don't need
Yeah.
to do that, son. Don't do it, son." And then Jim Lampley says, "Someone just knocked the headset off my head."
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do there? I guess someone told me Jerry Cooney was sitting next to them, and he got up and ran down the aisle and got the hell out of there.
It happened to me in Washington D.C. when Andre Duran fought Jose Skinnigy, and you remember that Andre's uncle went and in the other corner and he hit the guy in the chin, and
Right.
and then there was a fight right in the ring and then outside in the ring, and so what I did is I got Andre and I put him in the corner and I kept him there. I said, "No, this ain't your show. You stay right here."
Good.
And I took care of him. That was my job.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I've been there. But yeah, I've heard Mike Basil talking about in the Dominican Republic when they're throwing bottles and all
Yeah.
these chairs and all that. Then it becomes what do I do?
Yeah,
do I
right.
get out like Jerry Cooney?
Yeah. That reminds me of the thing that stands out in my head is that moment, the time where Marvin Hagler went over to England and beat Alan Minter, and the fans were not happy with stoppage.
Yeah.
He was just beating the crap out of him, busting him up, and the guy was bleeding all over the place. And because I remember Hagler said in a great interview with Reggie Jackson, I think it was, in Greatest Sports Legends, that he said Minter should never have had a chance to fight Antuofermo for that title. Hagler beat Antuofermo. They robbed him, making it a draw, and it should have been an immediate rematch with Hagler. And instead, they let Minter in there, and Hagler just said, this guy should never have had the title." And he said, "I was going to go and beat him, yeah, really badly." And he did. And then they were pelting the ring with stuff. And that's bad because what they were, and the Petronellis were protecting Hagler and putting his head down and putting that's a shame. I think that stuff doesn't happen as much. Am I wrong? But I think it doesn't, because I think then they didn't really know how they'd handle it. Now they would send security out there taking pictures, and people would be brought up on charges or fined a lot of money. So I think it doesn't happen as much. Would you agree?
Well, I don't know. It depends on where, when, and you just never know the circumstances. You could be in a third world country and
That's true.
where they don't have the same type of security, or even here. You get a bunch of drunk guys that just ain't happy, or a group of fans of one guy that aren't happy with the decision, and they start throwing blows. And it's funny you bring that up, Colin, because as we're working fights, right? You're in a great fight, and we're checking out the fight. Then you hear the audience in the back because they're turning their heads and there's a fight in the audience. Well, you know how common it is for us to do this and look. They take some of the fight away from us, right?
Yeah.
But then you have to realize that, no, you know what? I better pay attention to what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
But it does happen.
Absolutely. You don't want to get distracted.
Yeah.
What do you think of Francis Ngannou's performance with Tyson Fury? One thing that a lot of people wonder is this, and I think the layman and fight fans have some idea of what's going on, but not always a clear idea. And I guess a lot of it is going to be everyone's individual opinion. But when you see a performance where Francis looked amazing and Tyson Fury didn't look great, they give the fight to Tyson. Most people, especially MMA fans, felt that Francis won it. And then basically the overall opinion was, well, it only went that way because Tyson Fury didn't train for the fight at all. And to me, that seems kind of unlikely that a man's not going to train for a fight at all. Maybe he didn't train the hardest he could, or he thought it. But what do you think caused that? What was it really, in your opinion, that Tyson Fury thought, "Oh, this guy's going to be easy money. I don't even have to do anything," and then he surprised him, or is it really that you're still going to be a damn good fighter, and if Tyson was that much better than Ngannou, he would have looked a lot better than Ngannou? I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Well, keep in mind, Ngannou, and I always tell people, boxers, their mental game is here, right?
Yep.
MMA game, their mental game is up here.
Yeah.
So their pain threshold is a lot deeper than a boxer, because boxers, for the most part, you're receiving shots from the waist on up.
Yes.
You know, MMA, everything and from all angles, elbows and knees and low kicks and all that. So you're accustomed to that. Putting that aside, Ngannou's an athlete anyway.
Yeah.
And I know Dewey Cooper and I know Eric, and they're great trainers. And yeah, I knew it was, you know, you never underestimate someone like that. Yeah, did Tyson Fury maybe take a little extra time off or didn't train as hard because, you know, you got an MMA guy and a whoop him, and that's been the thing in the past. But when you're in the heavyweight division and, you know, you're in the, you know, middle 200s, you're not going to drop anybody. Skill-wise, Tyson Fury, because I've worked 2 fights with him against Deontay Wilder, skill-wise, he can fight, right? And, you know, Ngannou could take those shots. So, yeah, now he just, from what I understand, just signed with Anthony Joshua for some mega bucks.
Yep.
And talk about Ngannou, let me give him credit where credit is due, because, you know, he always complained about the UFC not paying on the fair share. And then with PFL, he says, if I fight on your cards, then my opponent, the minimum he makes is $2 million. That's tremendous. That. But better yet is Eric and Dewey. They tell you they're friends of mine that I've worked with them through their fights in Extreme Couture. Eric says, I looked at my bank statement when Francis paid me and I cried. He goes, he changed my life, and you know, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
You know, there's, you know, share that piece of the pie with everybody, and he's an example of what happens when you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Francis is a really good guy. I had a good exchange with him a couple years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, after he beat Cyril Gahn. Really good guy, true gentleman, very respectful. I just have nothing but admiration and respect for Francis, and I'm so glad that he did that well. I had a feeling he would. It's just, you know, that MMA training and then the training Mike Tyson was helping him out, and
well, you know,
he looked good.
Let me, now, from what I understand, Mike only spent like 3 days there. You know, but the publicity was great. Yeah. You know, and so that just I heard that from a very, very, very reliable.
Absolutely, it makes sense. You know, so a lot of Mike helped a little bit, but a lot of what Francis did is Francis and Eric and Dewey, and they are great. You know, Dewey Cooper and Eric Nixick. I did a great interview with Eric also about a year ago. Really good dude. And you know, it's ironic. He looks he's a redheaded guy, similar to this other guy that coaches Sean O'Malley, Tim Welch. And they're both like kind of bigger, younger guys with red hair. So I'm thinking, you know, is it Tim there or is it Eric? You know, but right. If you look at their face, but yeah, absolutely, and happy to see that. Now, Francis Ngannou and Anthony Joshua. Joshua looked great against Otto Wallin. In retrospect, it's hard to say how much of that was the limitations of Otto and how much of that was Joshua, but he looked really, really good. Francis, I think, is already instilled as a 2-1 underdog, or 3-1 even, or 4-1 something. What do you think? Do you think that we can take how good Francis did off Tyson Fury and say that he's definitely in that fight, or is there a good chance that Joshua just starches him quickly?
No, that's a good point, and I always look at styles on how they're going to match up. And yeah, okay, I can see the 2-1, the 3-1. I can see that because number one, Anthony Joshua can fight. You know, he can fight. He has good boxing skills. If he uses them, he's going to be tough to beat. I can see that as a distance fight. Can he knock out a Francis Ngannou? That's a little different story. But can Francis knock out Anthony Joshua? That would be his highest percentage-wise of winning a fight. Going the distance, Anthony Joshua. If there's going to be a knockout, they both, you know, will. Ngannou needs a knockout.
Yeah, understood. So, and Ngannou by knockout, and Joshua by decision. Do you think one of them is going to be more aggressive?
Joshua could actually go through both.
Right, you know? Right. But the way that
the highest percentage, I work on numbers and percentages, and the highest probability for Anthony Joshua to win would be going the distance.
Makes sense. Whereas the only way, and I agree, of Francis winning is by knockout. If they want to make odds for Francis winning on points, you should get a huge payout, because that's more than likely not going to happen. That's what I'm saying. It's probably got to be 20-1 that Francis can win on points. A long shot, I would think.
And he could go the distance, because keep in mind, these guys, they fight 25 minutes,
Yeah.
5-minute rounds, right?
Right.
And 3-minute rounds at a slower pace is not going to be an issue for him.
No, without a doubt. Let me
Yeah.
ask you before I forget, what was the experience like fighting on a Showtime card as opposed to an HBO card? Because they both were really polished. They both had the great graphics and the lighting and all the other stuff and great, production quality. But was there any difference? And I'd love to hear this. I just thought of this, and I've talked to you so much. I can't believe I never thought of this. I've been blessed to talk to you several times over the years. Was it a different feel? And if so, what was different about it?
Yeah, well, nobody's ever asked that, but yeah, you're right. The HBO fights were HBO. That was the mega top of the list of where you wanted to perform at. And yeah, HBO hands down was the place to go to. Of course, Showtime, you're doing Showtime fights. Those are excellent fights also. But HBO was HBO at that time. It was the mecca of boxing. You go to Garden for in live coverage, but in film wise, fighting out of HBO was the way to go.
Absolutely. You know what I'm remembering? I may have been wrong asking you, thinking about when there was a co-promotion on HBO and Showtime. There may never have been, but you know what I was remembering? I was remembering if a fighter that fought on the other channel was matched up against a fighter that was on the channel where they were going to fight, that fighter would bring along Michael Buffer or Jimmy Lennon Jr. and have him introduce that fighter, if you know what I'm saying. I'm sure you remember that. And that happened several times, because the guy who had agreed to fight on HBO, although he was a Showtime guy, was basically saying, but Jimmy Lennon is going to be there introducing me. And vice versa. If a HBO fighter made a deal to fight on Showtime, he would bring Michael Buffer, and they would have one guy introduce the one fighter and then hand the mic to the other announcer. Remember that? Several times, I think.
I don't remember that, and I really wouldn't care.
Right, that's
kind of. I've done a lot of things to compare ring announcers.
That's true. That's true. So yeah, not hugely
it.
significant, and I appreciate your honesty. You're always honest,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
at least I can share that with you to go back in memory lane.
I've worked with them both and have a great relationship with them both, and even closer with Michael Buffer, because we've done a lot of dinners together when he used to comment or do the announcing for the Klitschko's. So we would break a lot of bread together.
Yeah.
And so
Good
yeah.
guy. Amazing, great looking guy. The just class and the suits he wore and the way he held himself and just that amazing voice. Let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah.
That was a horrible impression. Sorry, Michael Buffer. but yeah, tremendous guy. In the last few minutes that we have here, maybe we've got 5 more minutes if that's all right with you, Stitch. What do you think about the landscape now of combat sports? It seems like more MMA fighters are getting into boxing. There's influencer boxing. The fact, let's start with the PFL buying Bellator. A lot of us are really kind of on pins and needles wanting to see what's going to happen. What PFL announced is we're going to keep running both organizations, and then we're going to arrange a tournament where the PFL champs fight the Bellator champs. This would be great. But then if you remember, UFC always talked a mad amount of trash as well about saying, well, we're going to keep Pride going on, or we're going to keep the Strikeforce organization fights going on, and then boom, dumped it immediately. We never saw another Pride fight or another Strikeforce fight. You've been working with Bellator and PFL, I think both of them.
I've done them both. Yeah.
What do you think? And I know if you have any hit information that you can't share, I understand that. But what would be your thoughts? Are we going to keep? Are they going to do that because that would be great, or do you think there's a good chance we'll never see another Bellator promotion again?
Yeah, I totally lost on this, but I think if I remember, one comment made by one of the executives was that Bellator was going to represent the European market. And that's as far as I know.
Interesting.
I talked to Burt Watson the other day, and he's in pins and needles. You don't know what's going to happen.
Because he is with Bellator. I know.
Yeah. He ended up. We worked together in the UFC, and they let him go also, or he left.
Yep.
FU, and
Yep.
and then he started working with Bellator. So yeah, I just spoke to Bert day before yesterday.
Nice. I've interviewed Bert several times too. You guys are the two men that I look up to most in this industry, even with me being an interviewer and you guys doing what you do still. You guys are truly the OGs of our sport, and you and Bert are both great guys. In your film, can you let it slip? Is there, along with your story of the end of the UFC, was Bert's in there? I'd imagine maybe not, because it's not his thing, or is it?
Yeah, no, it was just on what happened with mine, and even to the point where Dana saying, Stitch and I were never friends. It kind of blew up in his face. It's fine with me, but yeah, just let him know that, bottom line is, everybody knows, is that I represented the fighters through my words, and they try to chop the head off the snake, but they found out we got like 8 different heads coming anyway.
Yes.
So anyway, but I was telling you real quick before we leave, this Boxer's Nightmare that I did 23 years ago. Things just happened to me, Colin. So this young guy that like I said, send you the film and send it to other people. He says, you know what, we could do something with this. And his idea was the idea that I had a long time ago. With this is to do some current interviews now with MMA guys, because dementia pugilistica, taxes, finance, management, everything that was happening is still happening to boxing is happening to MMA, and we could do a piece on that. And we spoke today. So in conjunction with that, by the fate of God, when John Barnhouse passed, his family couldn't find the tapes. None of the videos. He had got into some. So anyway, he found them, and he's coming into town tomorrow, and he's bringing me the DVDs that we used to make this film. So expect to see that coming out also. This is educational, and it's not for me to make money on this, for us to educate everybody in the combat system that these fighters have to be taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you sent me that, I think, a year ago before my wife passed away, and I even had her watch some of it. It was so cool watching that footage from 23 years ago. If you ever need a backup interviewer or anything, obviously call me. I'd be there in a heartbeat.
I'll send you the when we get off the air. I'll send you the latest sizzle that they made on the documentary, and this so just for yourself. But yeah, they did this about a month ago, and that's what we're going to do to finish up the project.
Excellent. I'm anxious
I'll
to
send
hear
it to
that.
you once we get off. And then let me close by saying another great thing that's happening is I think I told you before that I had a company, a real high-end company that is going to work on doing a cannabis line, Stitch Premium Cannabis line with my name on it. And that's happening. In fact, I meet with them tomorrow, and this is like our 8th meeting. So I think we're close to knocking down a deal. And when the date comes for the introduction, it's going to be done here in Las Vegas. So I'll stay in touch with you.
Yes.
Once I get that, it's going to be pretty awesome, man. Just everything that been doing and developing this product for me is great, because there's a very high end company. I mean, extremely high end. But blessing that I worked for RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company for 23 years. So I know that business with this type of product. And it was just, it was just a blessing that things are happening. So yeah, you'll have a Stitch Premium Cannabis line coming up this year. I got my documentary that is being finished April the 28th, when they inducted me into the National Hall of Fame, Boxing Hall of Fame, and Boxer's Nightmares in the mix, so I've been blessed, man. It's been a great year, Colin.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you deserve it. And your grind is unmatched in this industry. And also, this is my first time hearing about the Stitch Cannabis line. Guys, anybody watching, you guys got to know, not only has Stitch been there taking care of people for years, but he comes from a generation where your integrity is absolutely more important probably than anything. So if you guys want to look for a cannabis product, once that comes out, that you can count on is not going to have garbage in it, I would highly recommend it from Stitch, because like I said, guys from his generation wouldn't put anything out with his name on it that wasn't
No,
first
even now.
class. So I know that I want to get some because cannabis can
Yeah.
really help with aches and pains from us older guys.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to shout out 18-year-olds to have cannabis all day or night. It's up to them. But I know that you're over 35 or 40. It's helping a tremendous amount of people and fighters and people that have trained with tremendous aches and pains and messed up stomach. And yeah, I can't wait to see you put that out. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it all started with a company that I've been working with. We named it, it's Stitch Premium. It's part of the Stitch Premium line, along with my tape and KO Swell and everything else. And but they created a cream for the healing process of cuts. And when they contacted me, I started asking them for proof sources, my RJ Reynolds background. And they didn't have any, so I took them to the bare knuckle fights with Dave Feldman, boxing events and all that. And guys got all screwed up and cut. Well, they would sew them up in the dressing room. We would take a picture of them, give them the cream, and they applied it every day. And a week later, the results were tremendous. So that's how all this started. And this company that does the high-end cannabis are distributors of CBD products. And that's how I got involved with them. And they offered me the opportunity to create a brand. So here's a kicker. I told them, I said, yeah, I'd be glad to, because there's 2 other companies I've spoken to, and the one that wants to do it, let's do it. But I said, look, I'll tell you right now, the best weed I ever smoked was a year I was stationed in Thailand. If you could create that Thai stick type of taste or close to it, we could call it Thai Stitch. So I think that's going to be what that's going to be.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Reminded me of smoking some Thai stick in 1985 in a tree.
Yeah.
With a couple of buddies of mine.
So you
So,
know, yeah.
Thai Stitch. That's awesome.
Even rolling papers. You know, the best rap in town.
Love
Right.
it.
You know,
Love that.
one
I
more
love
round.
that.
You know, one more round, whatever.
Yes.
But they're stoked on them. So I'll meet with them tomorrow, and we're gonna get close to locking down a deal. And once we come out with the product, I'll let you know. But it's gonna be a real big event.
Absolutely.
They're talking about Snoop Dogg, Mike Tyson, and just all these. I think they do the stuff for Snoop Dogg, Elton John. So it's an extremely high end company.
I love that.
So
quality for sure, and that's what
and
it's about.
everything's going to be Stitch Premium. That's what
Excellent.
I told them. We have to represent at the highest level. So I'll keep you informed with that, Colin.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. Well, Stitch, I'll make sure to jump off, and this is probably going to end, so I'll probably have to give you a call because once we jump off, we only got a minute left. So I'll call you to get the information you're going to give me about the other stuff. But I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to jump in here. I know you're, I think, at Stitch Duran everywhere on social media, or what would be your handle?
At Stitch Duran. And don't worry, I got your number. I'll send you the trailer right now.
Excellent. Sounds good. And then there was something else.
But then let me know how you like it.
Excellent. I will. Thank you so much, Jacob Stitch Duran. You're a legend, one of the best guys in the business, and I'm so grateful for your time, my friend.
Anytime, buddy. We'll do it again.
Thanks. Have a great one, and that's it for you guys. Hope you all enjoyed it. Take care. Be well. Peace.
Good job.